You know the old saying, if you ain't tampering, you ain't trying. Or maybe that's the new saying. Welcome to a special edition of Andy and Ari On3. Tampering edition. Hi, Ari.
Blow the horn again. It's firing me up.
That's the emergency show horn. There it is. There it is. So Pete Nakos, our guy, dropped a big story on Friday, and we got to coordinate with Pete to drop the stories like before our show so we don't end up missing and then having to come back. But this is a big one. And we came back to talk about this because it's very interesting and very of the moment in college football. So Pete's reporting that Ohio State receiver Jeremiah Smith has a $4.5 million plus offer to go somewhere else, and that's per year. And then Carnell Tate, another receiver at Ohio State, has a $1 million plus offer to go somewhere else. And this got me thinking about just how close this is. Like the mini NFL salary structure. It is kind of the compressed NFL salary structure because, you know, we follow the NFL contract talks and you have your guys on a rookie deal and that's your window when your quarterback's on the rookie deal. And then they get that second deal and all of a sudden your great quarterbacks and receivers and edge rushers are taking up giant chunks of your salary cap. Well, there's no salary cap in college football, but there's not an unlimited amount of money. And even Ohio State has to figure out how to spend its money, Ari. So how do you handle a situation like this?
Okay, so I have my preconceived notions on or opinions on this. And we talked about it for 31 seconds on the phone before we decided to go live about a half hour ago. And I want you to hear my point, and I want you to convince me on why you're on the other side. Okay? Because I don't
know that I'm directly opposed to you. I think we're in slightly different places. But go ahead.
But I also am willing and ready to be swayed. Okay. So I don't know how passionate I feel about this. But in the event that somebody will pay Jeremiah Smith $4.5 million to go there per year, and Ohio State doesn't match or come reasonably close to that, why wouldn't the man leave? Because I understand that Brian Hartline is one of the best, if not the best, receivers coach in college football. I understand that Ohio State has resources and an ability to win a national title and all the things that anybody could ever want. That said, Jeremiah Smith already won a national title, performed well in the national championship game, could go play for Duncanville High School for the next 2 years and get drafted in the first round. Why wouldn't somebody in his position, and I want you to change my mind on this, take $4.5 million, $9 million over the next 2 years while waiting to be drafted after winning the national title already? Like, explain that to me. Like, what's your thought process to turn that money down at this point in his development as a receiver?
Well, I never even thought about him actually turning the money down.
So
because Ohio State
how much does Ohio
gets
State
to
have to pay? How much do they get? Okay, I know, but like, where do they have to get to before you? Do they have to get to 2? Do they have to get to 3? How much money do they have to spend for him not to leave in your mind? Before
you get me on this, I want to tell everybody what you said. You said if I were Jeremiah Smith and the Naval Academy offered me $4.5 million, I would take it. We're assuming they're not going to change their offense.
No commitment to the military, of course.
right. Well, it was more a joke about they run the option. They don't throw a lot. So
yeah, that was the joke. But like at the same time, too, it's like Jeremiah Smith is a first-round pick.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter who his coach is the next 2 years or where he plays. Barring injury, he is a first-round pick.
So I think you and I are coming at this from a different place. You're assuming Ohio State's not going to come close. I think
I'm sure
you
they
just
will.
have to.
I'm saying if they don't,
you have to come reasonably close.
And what's that in your mind? What number is that?
$4 million, or $4 million this year. $4 million this year. $6 million next year.
See, like this is the thing. Like I disagree with this fundamentally in the chat. His environment matters. I don't know that it does in this case.
It probably doesn't for Jeremiah Smith. Jeremiah Smith will be the first receiver off the board in the 2027 draft, no matter where he plays. And he might be the first player off the board in the 2027 draft, no matter where he plays.
Do you know what's funny? At the beginning of the year, when we were just messing around and getting to know each other again, I brought up this very scenario. I said at the end of the year, if Jeremiah Smith gets offered X number of dollars to leave Ohio State, and it's already clear he's a first-round pick, why would he stay? And the reason why I use Jeremiah Smith in that made-up scenario is because he is one of the few players in college football that good
transcends it,
and where they are and who's coaching them. He is a generational talent. He does not need Ohio State to make him a first-round pick anymore. It's over.
Now, here's the thing. Here's the thing. He may like being at Ohio State. And that's why if they get close, and look.
But there's no conversation if they get close. That's not what we're talking about. If they get close, then
that's
what are we
the thing.
About?
Do you think they won't get close like that? Of course they're going to get close. It's a freaking Ohio State.
Standpoint. Okay, then shut the video off.
Well, no, there's more to this. There's more to this because he's not the only one involved here.
Yeah, I know. But he's the name. He's the guy.
But here's the thing. It ties into what I've been telling you about you can never have another super team. Because here's the deal. If you've got to spend an extra $1 million to keep Jeremiah Smith and it costs you Carnell Tate, good luck, Carnell. Been nice knowing you.
But here is where it gets tricky, okay? Carnell Tate, you could make the reasonable case, still needs Ohio State. Carnell Tate still needs to be...
But he can't be wide receiver 1 at Ohio State.
I understand that, but Emeka Egbuka wasn't wide receiver 1 this year, and he's going to be fine. Like, it doesn't
where
matter
can where can Carnell Tate go where he can be wide receiver 1? How many schools? 100?
Sure,
110?
Yeah. Sure. But I'm saying he is not a first-round pick yet. So you have to temper your expectations with that. Like with Jeremiah, it doesn't matter because he is a made first-round pick. It's over. There's no more development. Not saying he can't get better or that coaching won't help him.
But also, here's the other thing, Ari. He is a made first-round pick. He's going to make that amount of money. As much as $500,000 difference to you or me would be massive and might sway us, I don't know that it matters as much to him.
To Jeremiah?
Because that other money's coming. If you're happy where you are and you feel like you're getting developed at Ohio State, you can give them a little hometown discount.
Oh, for sure. I'm saying if Ohio State offered him 3.8 and he wanted to stay, then you're making 3.8. But I'm saying if it's a $2.5 or $2 million
but it's not gonna be. This is Ohio State, Ari. Let's talk in reality here.
Money, Andy. This is an absurd amount.
Is it really? What does Justin Jefferson make?
Yeah, in comparison to the NFL,
he makes $35 million a year. The NFL salary cap is about 7 times what we thought.
I know.
Ohio State was spending on its roster. This is exactly in line with what Jeremiah Smith should be making.
I don't want to compare him to Justin Jefferson. I want to compare him to the highest paid quarterback in college football. That's the league he's in. We're not talking about the NFL.
He's better than the highest paid quarterback in college football, and
is he more important?
I would say yes.
Because if you think he's more important than the number 1 quarterback, then he should set the market. But I do think it is it's the biggest number that we've seen in NIL reporting, right? Have you seen a bigger number than that for anyone?
Yeah, Carson Beck, Darian Minsa.
Darian Minsa, we've seen more than $4.5 million next year?
The number we got for Carson Beck was pretty high.
Oh, well, that's I would rather buy Jeremiah Smith than that. Okay, if that's where
100%.
We're at now, yeah, if that's 100%. Where we're at now, I was always under the impression that the NIL numbers for the elite quarterbacks were in between 1 and 2 million a year. So if it's higher than that now,
and then rev share came in and they went up.
So, okay, let's get back to the interesting part, though. The interesting part is...
Hey, Ari, can I help you out because you're not reading your text messages?
Oh,
fix your mic.
What's wrong with it? What's wrong with it?
Just change the source.
I just checked. It's on it.
Okay, good. Very nice.
I've got enough mic issues. You don't have to make them up now, okay?
All right.
And why would here's the deal. My text, buddy. I'm in conversation heaven with
You're flowing. I know. You're flowing.
Check my messages.
Here's the deal. Ohio State needs to pay whatever it needs to pay to keep JJ Smith. If that costs them somebody, oh well. And that is going to be the new reality. Getting people to stay is going to be the priority when they are the most important, and they're going to eat a lot of your salary cap. I realize there's no salary cap, but they're going to eat a lot of your payroll. And you got to figure out how to build your roster, maybe without some other folks. So that's what I'm interested to see. Does Carnell Tate stay too? Jeremiah Smith's going to stay at Ohio State. I'm telling you right now. He's going to stay there.
Here's the thing with Carnell. If you take the $1 million and go somewhere else and become wide receiver 1, there is the thought process that if you do that, your development as a receiver, you can make this case, will not be as drastic or as beneficial in the NFL eyes. Like Ohio State, I think you can say is the best place in America right now to be a receiver in terms of your draft stock and your ability to be developed. So for $1 million, which is life-changing amount of money, especially if it's a 2-year period, is the opportunity cost of going to a place for an extra 5, because he's probably making $500,000, right? Already.
Oh, I would think he's making good money. Yeah.
So if he's making good money already and he has $1 million offer, is the discount that you're getting at Ohio State going to be outweighed by a offer that might actually mean he makes less in the long run? Like with Jeremiah Smith, if he maximizes his income potential at this point in his career, he will maximize every cent that he can make in college and still make the same amount as a pro, no matter where he is. That's not true for Carnell. So when he decides where he's going to end up or what he's going to take right now, if I were him, I would probably go to the place that helps me make the most money long-term, not the most money in the next year, which is a far more complicated decision than what Jeremiah Smith has to do.
Right? It's the Jameson Williams decision. Like, remember Jameson Williams, and this is an unusual situation, but this is how good of receivers coach Brian Hartline is, because this keeps happening. But Jameson Williams was behind Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Jackson Smith, and Jigba, or was in a room with them, and had to go to Alabama to get some run, and winds up a first-round draft pick. Now, let me ask you this, Ari. If you're Carnell Tate, are you concerned that Quincy Porter, the 5-star wide receiver recruit from New Jersey, who's 6'3.5", 200 pounds, and also considered to be really good and potentially awesome, are you worried that that person might come in and jump you? Because JJ Smith came in and jumped you.
Yeah, well, Quincy Porter's a really, really good receiver prospect. JJ is in a world of his own, and he was the second.
I understand that, but if you are Carnell Tate, I am asking you that because Carnell Tate can go and be wide receiver 1 at 110, 115 places.
Well, here's the Carnell Tate thing where it gets spicy. Let's go through the teams that need a receiver. Miami could use one after losing George and Restrepo.
Oregon,
but they have Evan Stewart coming back. They have a home run hitter. Georgia.
Yes. Tennessee, Florida, Penn State.
Florida, Notre Dame. So we're not talking about him going to like tier B places. Like if somebody wants him to be wide receiver 1, like being wide receiver, like that's the question. Would you rather be wide receiver 1 at Georgia or wide receiver 2 at Ohio State with a national championship ring already?
Now, either way can make you a first-round draft pick. Like wide receiver 2 at Ohio State, Emeka Buka is probably a first-round draft pick. So wide receiver 2 at Ohio State, proven multiple times that you can be a first-round draft pick as wide receiver 2 at Ohio State.
And the second part of this is what we talked about on the pod today, which is all the best receivers in college football. Most of them were high school signees. So does that make your market value in this era as a receiver who can get open I'm sure the premium for that, like, I bet you he could squeeze more money than he's been offered because he's at a position scarcity situation, and he's really freaking good, and he's big, and he's caught big passes on the biggest stage. So the question I have for you is, just to get this out of the way.
Sure.
Jeremiah Smith, you pay no matter what. If you're Ohio State, you don't allocate those funds.
Whatever it takes. Whatever it takes.
Take $5 million and spread it around a little bit more. Because, like, would you rather have Carnell Tate, your starting left tackle, and your starting edge rusher? I'm making this up. Or would you rather have JJ Smith? Like, I think that's the game we're going to have to play here.
It is. And that is what NFL teams have to do as soon as their quarterback gets off his rookie contract. Like, how do we handle this? How do we pay? Or like we talk about the Cowboys where they paid Dak, they paid CeeDee Lamb, they're paying Micah Parsons. What else? They can't afford anybody else. Like,
and this is uncharted territory too, because like you look at JJ Smith and Carnell Tate. They're like Ohio State legends now. Like, wouldn't it be strange if Jeremiah Smith was just on Miami next year after winning?
Well, he's not going anywhere. Ari, just as we started this video, he tweeted, Jay Wimbrow tweets, "Ain't gonna happen. That family is too loyal." And Jeremiah Smith retweets it with the 100 emoji. So Jeremiah Smith's not going anywhere. Jeremiah Smith is going to be fairly compensated at Ohio State. And, Ryan Day was on Dan Patrick's show talking about that. And he said, this is what he said: "I think the first thing you have to do is bring in great people and great families, but you also have to value them and try to do everything you can to get what they deserve and what's fair. There's also something to be said for being around a program like ours. And if you think it's all equal, we'll have our chance to get our share of guys. But it is different. There's no question. I think as coaches, we're all looking for a little bit more guidelines on this. Everything is so gray right now." Now, the good thing for Ryan Day is Ohio State has plenty of resources. They will make sure that JJ Smith gets a fair offer. Like, you don't have to worry about that. But I think this ties into what I was saying the last few weeks. And I got a lot of pushback on this past Ohio State team, the one we just saw win the national title, being the last of the super teams. You are seeing it play out in real time right now, why you can't build another team like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you have a JJ Smith, you have to make sure you keep him.
And the better
it might cost you others.
The better you are, and the more games that you win, the more expensive it becomes.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right. And so even though there is no salary cap, like I said, there's no unlimited money tree. Everybody's got their limit. And so Ohio State and Georgia and Alabama have got to figure out how to deal with that.
Yep.
Bulletproof Soul says, what you also don't get is JJ Smith's NIL isn't tied to the collective. There are major corporate sponsors in Columbus like Kroger and Nationwide Insurance who will take care of it. It's not even that. JJ Smith is so good and so transcendent that he qualified. And there are very few college football players who reach escape velocity and qualify for national campaigns. You saw Travis Hunter last year. JJ Smith does. He's that good.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And like, that's the thing too with Ohio State. And we do understand it. I lived there for 10 years. I know how many major Fortune 500 companies are there. And it's just like, and like, that's the thing too. And I don't want to like blast this off into a completely different direction, but like, I do wonder if part of the reason why the SEC was not as dominant this year is the beginning effects of the fact that they're all in small southern towns and the northern schools are in places that have Fortune 500 companies headquartered there, right?
I don't even think it's that, Ari. I think it's more simple than that. Look at the size of the alumni bases in the Big Ten.
Well, it's not just that. If the SEC,
it's just more potential donors. Period.
Is it fair to say though that everybody cheated, but like the SEC cheated more?
Better. cheated better.
Cheated better
is the way I'd
but
say
however
it.
you want to phrase it, they were more efficient in
The
getting
Big Ten
players.
schools always got caught because they were bad at it.
So right. So follow me there.
Yeah.
They were more efficient. They were better. Whatever adjective you
Right,
want.
but you're what 40 grand in a duffel bag used to get you doesn't get you squat anymore.
Exactly. And now everybody can pay, and you have Kroger and Nationwide Insurance and all these Fortune 500 companies in Columbus, and it's like all of a sudden, duffel bag boy in Knoxville ain't gonna do shit for you. Whatever. And I know that Knoxville has been the leading NIL.
Well, Knoxville and Nashville, like Knoxville, they got money. Nashville is a huge, fast-growing city.
Sure,
now, that's not
it.
That's
money.
It's
Do they all have
purely Tennessee territory either? Like
they all have corporate America money.
There's corporations in Nashville, but they're not all purely Tennessee territory.
City, but I'm like, what about Alabama?
There's also a little town called Atlanta.
It's a pretty big town.
There's a town called Miami, Tampa.
Miami's pretty big.
They have big cities too.
So you don't think there's anything to like the decline of the fact that like the SEC cheated better, more efficiently than the Big Ten? Everybody can play by those rules now, and the Big Ten's just better.
I just said the Big Ten has more potential donors. They have massive alumni bases.
So that edge is gone.
Oh yeah, 100%.
That's all I was getting at.
100%. And the edge for the top 3 or 4, because one of the things that happened and it was really recently, it was really like 2008, 2009 when it started, and it's basically over because of the NIL era. But this super team concept where before people would just kind of go to the schools that were near their houses. Some guys would go across the country, but not many. But as 7-on-7 became more popular, had these national tournaments, and then you had these recruiting events staged by companies like ours, where these guys would get together over and over as high schoolers and make friendships and be like, we should all play at the same school. Well, that same school was almost always Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, and then in the later period, Georgia. Like, there was only room for a few of those. Now, because there's money to be had, there's other places where you can play. Like, Arkansas has tons of money. Michigan State has tons of money. There are places you can go where you can get paid really well and play right now rather than sitting. And it has diluted the talent base at those schools and will continue to.
Yeah, I mean, that's the column. If Carnell Tate transfers out of Ohio State, like that day that happens, like someone's got to be on it, right? Like
it's already up here.
Yeah, I mean, I got it up here too. We can write the same thing at the same time. But like,
that's no problem. People read it.
That's the thing. That's the thing. So, yeah, I am not surprised by that. I mean, Kenny Dillingham was talking about this at the playoff.
Yeah. And he's got to deal with it on a different level because they don't have the resources Ohio State has.
He's like, we just made this awesome run and everybody got a taste of success and stuff. And it's like, well, guess what, guys, step up. It just got more expensive because everyone wants our players now. Like that's how it's going to be. And not and like, here's the thing about Carnell Tate. It's not just financial with him. It's also the depth chart. Like people don't want to be jammed. Even if you're playing a lot. The number 2 receiver.
And if you're concerned, if you're concerned about anybody else, and remember, Ohio State has a lot of good players. You know, Brandon Ennis is there too.
Yeah, he was a 5-star, wasn't he, or a high-end 4?
He was a very high-end recruit. So everybody's got guys, and if you are not, like, especially receiver, if you're not wide receiver 1, like at Ohio State, you can be wide receiver 2 and you'd be just fine. Alabama, you can be wide receiver 2. Like the places you can be wide receiver 2, and you've seen people go first round as wide receiver 2 at those places. But if you're not entirely sure you're going to be wide receiver 2 and you can go somewhere else and be guaranteed to be wide receiver 1, you have to think about that.
Andy, Ohio State's, and I just looked this up while you were talking, Ohio State's entire receiving core next year, as it stands right now, are all top 40 players nationally.
Hartline's a dog, dude.
Quincy Porter, Mylan Graham, Brandon Ennis, Jeremiah Smith, and who am I forgetting? Oh, Carnell Tate.
Carnell Tate
stands right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, they're all, that's pretty crazy.
Hartline's a dog.
Dude,
telling you.
like the thing about it is like there's 5 teams that were in the playoff this year that would die for just one of those guys.
Well, I don't know how to break this to you, but
State,
they're probably
Notre
trying to
Dame,
get him.
Penn State,
Probably
Notre
trying to
Dame.
get him to go into the spring portal. Kazari,
And
what did we say at the beginning?
Tennessee, put that back up. Put that back up, River. Tennessee, Texas,
Yep.
Penn State, Notre Dame, and Georgia, all of them would die for a top number 1 receiver.
Indiana would love him too.
And like I know Indiana's a little bit different, but I felt like if one of those receivers, like if Carnell Tate was on Penn State, they would have made the championship game. If Carnell Tate was on Notre Dame, they would have been more competitive in the national title game. If Carnell Tate was on Georgia, Georgia wouldn't have lost to Notre Dame. If Carnell Tate was on who am I forgetting? Tennessee, they might have been more competitive with Ohio State. Like it's like a lot of these teams, their number 1 ailment is what Ohio State has a wealth of excess in.
Ari, that sound you just heard is Carnell Tate's agent sending you a fruit basket.
Yeah, well, I don't really
whether
like
he stays at Ohio State or goes into the portal, it's all going to work out really well for him.
Can we discuss melon and how crappy of a fruit that is, or do you want to get out of here?
We do not need to discuss that.
Okay.
That is an hour and a half into a Friday show kind of situation.
If you order a fruit basket or a fruit cup at any restaurant and it's filled with melon, you got scammed. That's the poverty of fruit.
Carnell Tate's agent, you're hearing this?
No
Ari
melon,
wants a lot of kiwi.
I want an edible.
Ari wants a lot of kiwi in his fruit basket that you're going to send him, okay? What did we learn today? If you ain't tampering, you ain't trying. We'll talk to you again soon.